So a lot has happened since the last summit and we were all together. I think we're all still learning. We're still in that very early stage, whether it be the policymakers, regulators, platforms, and users getting used to some of these changes. I think we've seen a few ripples, but it's starting to calm down. I think it's inevitable that there's going to be more change coming. Um, Collectively, I think we're working really well to try to figure out these things here in the UK at least. I know there are some different things happening in other regions around the world. Time will tell whether they're effective or not. But I think the fact is that we're having these conversations. We're really focused on child safety. I think that is the key thing. We will figure it out. And one thing I really want to make sure is that we're keeping that child perspective and not just doing things at children, but actually bringing them into the conversation and really thinking about the child rights element. That's my gap. So investment is the number one thing. So it needs to be people, tools, and education because there's no point doing tools if people don't know that they're there. We can also do a lot more in the prevention space, I think. It's one thing to identify and take down harmful content, but actually, the more we can do to stop it from happening in the first place, whether it be people acting in a negative way or detecting it at source, the better. And also just remembering that investment isn't just monetary, it's about time and attention and being really thoughtful before we introduce anything for people within the platforms. So there are lots of fantastic tools as well, which obviously help us in our work around this. So, you know, things like Roost, so the robust online open source tools project. We're one of the founding members, but it's a group of larger tech platforms who are sharing their AI-based technologies together for the greater good, open sourcing it for other smaller platforms and studios to use. Just a couple of the examples of what we've shared with them is our AI voice classifier and a project called Sentinel, which is our grooming detection tool. It has really helped us to use new technology in a really positive way to really search at scale and much faster than we would have been able to detect some of these behaviors previously. That then allows us to use our human moderators to really manage the more complex things and to do more kind of casework. So I think those sorts of tools are really helpful. And then there's also the partnerships around things like the Internet Watch Foundation and others, which are key. And yeah, I think those are it. So there are some amazing examples of really good collaboration and totally focused on these kind of issues. So things like We Protect, the Tech Coalition, Project Lantern, that people probably will have heard of, but they are, working together on policy issues, on some lobbying of governments, really trying to get the user voice as well and having kind of victim voice at the center, and things like Lantern, which is signal sharing to detect and prevent CSE, etc. Aside from that, there's kind of softer projects of collaboration, which I think sometimes is where it quietly, there's a huge amount of really good work happening. So things like the Thriving in Games group, they wouldn't traditionally have been focused on child spaces, but actually they're helping games companies to focus more broadly on pro-social design as well as, other topic specific initiatives like Thrive, which is a suicide prevention signal sharing project that's led by the Mental Health Coalition. Again, they're not the obvious things you'd think about when it comes to tech, but actually those adjacent projects I think are doing a lot of work to really help us get better, but also for the prevention. We really have to work together to keep the community safe, I think. So you have to include child safety and child rights right from the beginning. It's always really hard to retrofit safety. It has to be built in by design. I think leaning into the expertise that's out there. So we have really good online safety, critical harms experts, we've got Intel experts, and they know those online spaces, the good and the bad. But there are also real world harms that we need to focus on now that we might not be the experts in or have the understanding quite so deeply. So things like mental health, neurodiversity, some of these physical harms that we're seeing, and actually some of these emerging threats that we're seeing. this is new to all of us. So we really need to work with those external experts to really make sure that we're providing the best support for our communities. So the roster is absolutely amazing. You always bring the best people together for this event. There are so many good speakers, so many good topics. And as always, every time I look at the agenda, I'm wondering how I can possibly be at all the things I want to attend all at the same time.